Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer 2023. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2023. You can join us virtually June 12th through 14th, or come visit us in Cincinnati on July 27th and 28th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Aloha, I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We bring the tips and tricks to help you in your everyday work as an instructional coach or whatever they call you in your school district.
So hopefully you're going to leave this episode with us today feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
And our role as coaches is an interesting one because we get to work with administration, we get to work with educators and even students, but sometimes it can be complicated to show your value and importance in a district, especially if you were in such a large school district in terms of both student population and even geographical sense. So how do you prove your worth when you are in that large district with multiple buildings that are sometimes many miles apart? We're going to tackle those issues today in order to find the perfect balance with working with our educators and how to show our value in our district. So we have a couple of guests on here today. The first guest is Cami Kniekens, and she is in her 6th year as a district instructional coach in a rural school district in southern Alberta, Canada, which is a small population but very large geographical area of over 11,000 square miles.
Woo!
Ooh, yeah, that's large. Prior to that, she taught high school English and social studies for 20 years and concurrently did a 5-year gig teaching an ed tech course to pre-service teachers at a local college. She has a master's degree in educational leadership and, among other ed tech certifications, is a CSAL certified educator, a Google certified trainer and coach, ISTE community leader, and a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. She works in providing learning experiences across great distances for both students and teachers by introducing them to digital tools that help them connect and build relationships and amplify community-based projects. She also loves providing virtual EdTech PD for teachers and school board across Canada as a Cobblestone Collective team member, which was formerly EdTech Team Canada. So welcome in, Cami.
Well, hello there. It's great to be here.
Yes, Kimmy, It is so nice to have you on the podcast. We are really looking forward to diving in the conversation with you, as well as our second guest here with us today, Rachel Porter, that I have the pleasure of introducing. She is an instructional design coach here with us at Forward Edge. Prior to joining us here at Forward Edge, she spent the bulk of her teaching career in high school language arts, but also has experience teaching middle school and kindergarten. Quite the whiplash I felt like you had there, Rachel, for more than 20 years in education. Rachel has 2 adult children, 1 teenage daughter, and a grandson. Rachel has a passion for connecting to new and veteran teachers alike, supporting them in a way that makes them feel safe to learn new things. Outside of education, you can find Rachel at various restaurants playing trivia with friends, growing her family's online editing business, or enjoying a quiet evening at the Quinn Chapel, her historical church home in Glendale, Ohio. So, Rachel, we are super excited to have you on the podcast for the first time as well.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming on, but let's just start right off with it. So the schools that you coach at are both, they're large districts in terms of both geographical sense, but also in terms of student population. So if you don't mind, just kind of talk about how many staff and students that you are supporting, how many buildings you work in, and obviously, Cami, we talked a little bit, it was in your bio, over 11,000 miles and square miles. That's a large district to cover.
Well, so I wanted to put that in context. So if our district was an American state, we would be the 42nd largest. We would be larger than Maryland, but smaller than West Virginia.
Wow.
So geographically, we're bigger than 20% of the American states. So that is a lot of geographic area.
Wow. Thank you for painting that visual
Yeah.
picture. First of all, I feel like I can understand 11,000 miles a little bit better. But Cami, actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt for just a second because just from a clarification standpoint, for our listeners, most of whom come from the U.S., we have a little bit of a global listenership. But I believe in Canada, you call your, like what we call a school district, that's kind of reports to the same collective, reporting and superintendent and leadership team. You call them school boards. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correct?
Yes,
or can you clarify that for us before we dive in?
We call them a lot of things. So
Okay.
school board would be common, and that's, I think, really comes out in Ontario. Here, you could use school board. You could say, what school district are you from? What school division? We use them all like pretty much synonymously, interchangeably. If there's a distinction, I'm not even sure how we would distinguish. So we use them all.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just need to kind of wrap
No,
my head around that
that is
and
a-
some of
that
the
is a
language
difference.
we might
Yeah.
hear as you talk through. So sorry, back to Justin's question about the size and scope of the schools
All right.
and
Okay.
staff that you
So
support.
in our school, Prairie Rose School Division, I think our name has Prairie Rose School Division, Prairie Rose School District. Now I don't even know if the D is division or district when I think about it. So it's one of those. So we have, so geographically very large. If I was going to get in my car, which I do a lot, and drive from one end to the other, it would be about 3.5 hours between our farthest schools. Now I don't ever do that hardly ever do that in one day. So that's kind of our north to south. Our east to west isn't quite as big. So within that, we have 18 physical schools, and then we have 3 or 4 kind of online entities. About 2,300 students and about 210 teachers. Now, the interesting thing is, in addition to that, we also have what are called Hutterite colonies. So think like Amish type colony, but lots of like they do not drive horse and buggy. They have the biggest tractors and the biggest agricultural equipment that you could imagine. Like they are super tech agriculturally, but they live on colonies. And so we have about 18 of those within our school division as well, because it's very agriculture. So as coaches, we don't go to those schools often, but we do sometimes go to those schools as well. So the other thing that's really interesting is the makeup of our schools. Our largest school, it was the high school that I taught at, is about 470 students right now. That's 10 to 12. But then we have a lot of really tiny kind of remote schools. So we have K-9 schools that have less than 30 kids, if you can wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
So they're triple graded. We have a couple, probably 4 or 5 schools that have less than 50, but some that as small as less than 30 for K-9. So
Wow.
that's, it's quite different in the size of our schools, and then their needs are very different as well based on those demographics within the schools. So that's a bit about my situation.
Wow.
I do have a car that comes with my job. So
that's nice.
That's a good, but it sounds like very necessary perk that you need.
Yeah, I still can't get over the fact that you basically are driving like an entire state every day.
Well, yeah. Well,
like-
and I don't go to all this, like,
Sure.
you're right. It's not like it's even it's not like I go every 18 days around, but some days I'm on the road. Well, most days I'm on the road all the time. So my office, I do have an office, a desk at a place, but really my office is in my car. You should see the back seat.
You need one of those vans maybe for next year or something like that. You can actually put like a little bench or a desk back there.
Like
or
one
something
of those, like pull down a little bed if she needs it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Have a little kitchen in there, a little kitchenette. Awesome. Well, Rachel, tell us about your situation.
Okay, well, mine is definitely much more scrunched together. My district just spans about 8 to 10 miles, but we have 11 buildings that I serve, 8 elementaries, a middle school, a high school, and then what we call an innovation center for high school students. And I support about 5,500 students and a little over 700 teachers in my district. So definitely a big population, but it doesn't take me long to get from place to place every week.
Yeah. But those 700 teachers spread out between 11 buildings. There's only 5 days in a week, right? So
It is tricky.
yeah, so that kind of leads in. Justin, I don't know if you had a follow-up before I jump in to my next question.
Well, just it's multiple communities, right, that are all put together, so different little villages and things like that, correct?
Yeah. So different, I would say, like community schools or neighborhood schools in the district, and then they all kind of come together for a melting pot when they get to middle school for 6th grade. Our middle school has about 1,300 kids, and our high school has about 1,700 students. So.
Great.
Okay.
So that you both just kind of led me right into this. So 3.5 hours. There's only so many hours in the day, and only so many working hours. There's only 5 working days a week. So obviously it's physically impossible for the two of you to actively be in all of the buildings that you support. Let alone every day, even every week. Cami, it sounds like maybe even for you every month, it might be tough to get into all of the buildings that you serve. So knowing that, okay, you can't get to every building, how do you go about giving support to your teachers when you can't always be there, you can't always see them? How do you kind of, I guess, maybe duplicate yourself a little bit to be there when you're not physically there? What does that look like for both of you? And Cami, we'll turn to you first, and then Rachel.
All right, I'll start off with some of the things that happen here. So that aspect of keeping a presence is so important. How do we, what does that look like? So we try a couple things. This year, I actually have 2 other coaches with me, and I forgot to mention that because that does help. Last year, I was the only one. So, it's nice to have some people to share that distance with. So one of the things that we've done over the time. So when I started this job 6 years ago, I was the first coach. So I'm kind of the only coach our district's known. We've just, it's evolved with how that's gone. So one of the things we've done is monthly newsletters, and those have become pretty important to what we do. Every month we have a skills challenge in them. So this year it's all about search skills. Last year it was Google Drive organization. The year before it was Chromebooks. So we do these skills, little mini lessons, and then teachers and their students can submit their work and they get a little Amazon card. So those kinds of things with those little enticements, like those little skills challenges, have really pulled people into the newsletter. And so then our newsletter we have sections like around the district. And so we show, what's going on, and we have, different sections because we're not, because there's not many of us as coaches, we do it all, right? Like, so I do a lot of technology, but I'm also literacy coach and everything else coach, right? Yeah. So there's quite a big breadth of things that I might encounter in a day as far as topics. And so that newsletter helps us to push a lot of that forward. One of the things in there, we always have something called PD bingo. And so you can imagine in a district like ours, if I'm a PD deliverer, I don't get to schools all the time. So we have a PD bingo that we do. And it's, you can, depending on how many spaces you get, then there's prizes. We usually do it as extra PD funds to do things, but that's been really popular as well. And then in that newsletter every month, there's a square of the month. And so if you do the square in that month, we send a $10 Amazon card. And it's amazing how teachers will be pulled in with a $10 Amazon card. Yeah, so, the fact that that idea of paying people a little bit to do PD is good. And that also really creates community, because lots of it's like post to Padlet or post on this Wakelet or, record on Flipgrid your answer. And so then what that does is it also builds community around our district as well, because we have lots of teachers that never meet or don't get to see each other very often. So it kind of helps build that community too. So
I love that so much. Would you mind to share like just a couple of the recent things that have been on the PD bingo board? Like what types of PD are they completing to essentially like mark off a square on their bingo board?
So it can be we've got, some easier ones and some harder ones. So one square is to do a single month of the skills blitz that we talked about. And then another square is to do the whole season, right? So do the whole season, put all your evidence into a Google slide, and then that's a box. Another one would be to listen to 2 hours of podcasts and tell about, who you should listen to his podcasts. And we've got one like that for webinars. We've got,
I know a podcast they can
one-
listen to. Get a square.
yeah.
Shameless plug.
And then actually, so there's that one. And then they have another one where we are a Canva district. So we're really trying, our teachers love Canva. And one of the things that we do as coaches for our admin in our schools is we do lots of the Canva template design.
Mhm.
So we're like, here's a template design for this exhibition of learning that y'all have to do. You can take this, use it however you want, edit it, put your colors in, your branding. But so we try to build a lot of those templates and things that especially the smaller schools, if you're the principal at one of our smaller schools, you are also probably a teacher of at least 0.7 time. So like 3/4 of your time, you're probably a classroom teacher plus being the admin. So when we build things in Canva, that's helpful. But then one of the things in one of the podcast squares is create a design in Canva that shows your 4 favorite podcasts. So just, so that one's some of them are doing things. So you have to listen to the podcast and you have to create a thing. Some of them are easier, like social emotional kind of, give us a post about the favorite thing that happens at your school to create community so, there's some really easy ones. And then there's some that are, we try to hit technology and social emotional and literacy and deeper thinking. So, we've got a whole variety.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
it's
And so is
fun.
it a year long, like the school year long
Yeah,
board
we have
that they have?
Yeah, school year long. So we have a board. We used to actually used to look like a bingo board, and you had to get like a row or something. And now we just have a list of 30 things, and you have 25 as a blackout. So a blackout, if you do 25 items, we will pay for your registration to a major conference. So
Oh, wow.
last year when I went
That's
to
a great
ISTE,
incentive.
some of the gals that I was with had gotten their ISTE paid for because they had done all this bingo work. And you would be like, some teachers, honestly, it's too bad, couldn't care less about the PD, right? But others, it's like, I want to go to this thing and I don't get enough money otherwise to go. So I'm going to pay for at least my registration with PD bingo. And so they really just pump out the challenges. And so they like it, the PD bingo, because it's asynchronous. They do it on their own time.
Mhm.
And there's such a variety. So yeah, that's been a fun one that we've done.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Rachel, what about you? How are you kind of multiplying yourself for
I
teachers?
have just learned a lot.
I know.
Thank you.
I
for
know.
that. Took lots of notes there.
Yeah.
I would say my district is very much like a family already. And so just by making myself available as far as putting things physically in the school buildings, like PD on the Potty is a thing I do every month in all of the bathrooms at every building. People know how to find me. I too do newsletters. I usually do 2 a month where I can give tech tips. And a little bit of a difference between my district and Cammie's is my buildings all have a coach. So I am the single tech coach, I guess. That's what they call me.
Because their coaches are literacy
Yeah, they're
coaches.
mostly
Yeah.
literacy or the data for math or whatever. So they're not focused on the tech integration piece, and that's what I'm there to do. Another thing that I like to do is within the district is competitions. So my district has Edu badges as part of their PD, and I do something called Battle of the Badges amongst different buildings.
They go crazy for that.
They love it. This past month I did David versus Goliath with the 4 small elementaries versus the 4 large elementary schools, and the small schools won by leaps and bounds.
Wow.
So I find that super interesting. And they like to do a lot of trash talk, and and every time I'm in their buildings, they are always talking about it. So also, I would say that just letting them know when I'm available or where I am at any given time. I hop on a Google Meet often when I'm not in somebody's building. So if they need to chat about something or whatever, and they know I'm not in their building that day, they feel comfortable just making an appointment real quick. We can hop on and I can help troubleshoot something or go through a unit or a lesson or give them tips. and supporting them in that way. So I don't physically have to be there.
Great. Rachel, you have a schedule that you know, it's kind of a set, here's when I'm in the building. How do you communicate that schedule to your teachers?
Okay, good question. In the beginning of the year, I physically give every teacher my schedule on cardstock, like a fourth of a size of piece of paper. And I see them in their classrooms now all throughout the year. I use Canva to design that. And then I have that in my newsletter all the time. It's always there. And then I also email teachers the day before I'm coming. So they know I'll be in their building all day. And I just schedule those emails out in advance. I find that because like in the elementaries, I'm only there once a month. So letting them know the day before, hey, tomorrow's my day, I'm going to be in your district, then they take me up on scheduling something. And it's almost always my calendar starts to fill up that afternoon.
Yeah. I think it's smart to send them the day before. Like when I was coaching, I would do it the morning of, like, reminder, I'm here today. And then it's like, you know, too far gone, right? Like they've already got the IEP meeting, the principal's already coming to like observe them so they're stressed or, you know, whatever else that they have going on. But something about even just the day before, I think that's smart.
I usually try also on like the Friday before the week I'm starting, at least for the elementary principals, because I'm more often in the middle and high school. I tell the principal, hey, I'll be there Tuesday, FYI, just a reminder, you know, I don't know what meetings you have going on all the time. Sometimes they don't communicate that with me. So I kind of say, hey, I'm here to do whatever you need me to do from their, like our our elementaries have from 8 to 9 a.m. And if they don't have a meeting already scheduled, often principals would say, hey, if you want to offer something, I'm game, like, so I can do that.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So I do it. I do it in many of our elementaries. So
that's awesome. And Cami, I don't know about you. Do you have a consistent schedule, or how does it work for you to actually? How do you determine what buildings you're going to and when?
We've tried a lot of things, but you know, because of the driving, really, that consistent schedule, it just doesn't work out. And again, the smaller schools really love it when we come, because we're a sounding board, we're another body, we're another set of hands. And so, you know, not every school is the bigger schools don't need us as much. We still go there lots and we do lots of great things, but the smaller schools are like, yes, can you please come? So with the schedule, I'm kind of the boss of the schedule. So we have a shared Google Calendar, but it's kind of on a as need or as ask basis. And so a school will say, hey, we want to do a thing with coding, or we want to do can you help us with Google Sites or something? So I might start with the teacher, and then we'll book that in. And then what'll happen is, if I'm doing other coaching cycles or other coaching work with other teachers, I'll say, hey, I'm coming to your school on Tuesday, the 27th of March. Do you want to do the next, like, should we get to do the next step in the thing that we've been working on? And so typically before the day's over, I'll have a whole day built out of little projects that I'm pushing along with different teachers, or in our farthest schools, there's kind of a whole community about 2 hours away that we will drive back and forth to on a day. But often when I go there, I'll stay overnight. And so I'll say to the schools, I'll say, okay, I'm coming on these 2 or 3 days. What do you want? What do you want to do? And so then, okay, we'll do this and this, or I'll talk to the individual teachers. So it's kind of it has to be something that we schedule as coaches, because that driving time, it's like, okay, well, if I'm here in the morning, I've got enough time, I can drive to this school in the afternoon. And so you can't put that on a schedule. So, it's just, and then there's, with meetings and all the other things that happen. So we don't have a set schedule. And so that might mean that, for some schools we're there quite a bit in a little bit of time. And then the other schools we haven't gotten to for, could be a month or two before we get to some schools, but then we'll be there 3 times within 3 weeks because we're working on a project. So there's an ebb and flow about how all that works scheduling wise here.
You did say something though that I have another follow-up question. Sorry. Jump in if you do too, Justin. But Rachel, I know you do. And Cami, you mentioned it as well. I was wondering as you were talking, and then you said like your coaching cycles. So I'm curious to hear from both of you, what does what do coaching cycles look like
Mm-hmm.
with, Rachel, so many teachers? We know we've got a lot of schools, like our Texas schools are,
Yeah.
they've got even, quadruple the number, that they're supporting. So what does that look like, recruiting teachers and carving out time to have a consistent coaching cycle when you have so many buildings, so many teachers, or so many miles to cover? What's that look like? Rachel, we'll go to you first on this
Okay.
one.
I typically have only really done formal coaching cycles at the middle and high school level because I'm there once a week and can sustain that where I see them often. I do have a couple of elementary teachers who we do meet every time I'm in their building once a month, and they're working on specific things. I guess you could call that a formal coaching cycle, although it's not necessarily dedicated to one specific goal that they want to achieve. It's multiple goals that are kind of month long, and then we check in every month. So that's really how I have worked it into my schedule, and found that it's been pretty successful. So
Awesome. Thank you. Cami, what about you?
Well, ours aren't what you would call really. They might be somewhat formal, but they're certainly not structured. Like when you look at read lots of the books about ed coaching, it's like an 8-week cycle, and you get on the bus and you do your thing, and off the bus, and maybe even with the cohort. Ours are very loose. So as a teacher has a goal, we will kind of onboard them. And so actually, Rachel was talking about Google Meet, and that has made the world of difference for us. When I started this job, like nobody would want to go Google Meet. In fact, it was hardly a thing, right? And then so COVID has been great for that, because teachers are like, well, no, don't come out. We'll just Google Meet. So for coaching sessions, they'll email and say, hey, I want to work on this. Or when I'm in a school, they'll say, hey, can we start to work on this? I'll say, okay, great, let's start. So we might actually have a couple Google Meets where we're setting the stage, we're talking about the problem of practice, and, getting a few ideas down. And then I'll come to the building to co-teach or, work with students or something like that. And so we've already done all this work on Google Meet, where we've met during a prep period or right at the end of school or before school. So Google Meet has just really helped multiply the amount of work that we're able to do in a coaching cycle. So it might be half over Google Meet and half in person, or if the schools are really far away, it might even be like 2/3 Google Meet and 1/3 in person. But it's just really, we can do a lot of work in a Google Meet. And again, because of the distance, our teachers are like, oh, well, that's a better option than, waiting till you get here. So that, they don't have to wait to do a coaching cycle. So that's really kind of sped that process up. So
that's awesome. I love to
Google
hear that
Meet's
they're
been huge.
adapting and embracing that. So that's awesome. Okay, my line of questioning, I'm going to bring it to a close here as we take a quick break from our sponsor, and we will be right back.
Who is in your coach community? The EDU Coach Network is a professional learning community designed specifically to help instructional coaches connect, learn, and grow together. With free and paid options available, there is a space for all coaches in the EDU Coach Network. Join today and access coaching content that will help you impact teaching and learning in your school. Go to www.educoachnetwork.com to join.
Instructional coaches support teachers, students, administrators, and really everyone in the district. In fact, research shows that instructional coaching is one of the most impactful forms of professional development that results in improved teacher instruction and student achievement. But who is supporting the coach? Forward Edge provides multiple year-long mentorship options recommended by the Google for Education Certified Coach Program to help you gain the valued support you need as an instructional coach. Visit forward-edge.net to start giving PD to the ultimate PD providers.
Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. I'm Katie Ritter with co-host Justin Thomas here, and we've got Rachel and Cami with us today, and we are talking about finding a balance in really large districts, either geographically or number of buildings or number of staff members that coaches support. So we've been digging in, and I'm going to turn it over to Justin to kind of take us to the next step here beyond teachers that you all support.
Yeah, because obviously you got to support the administration as well, and also just it's difficult, especially with both of your situations, to always touch base with the administration, the schools that you are in. So how do you work with administration knowing that you're not always going to be in their building or get a chance to actually have a meeting with them? Because, sometimes you might be at that building, but they have like a seminar or something that they're doing. So they might not even be in the building that day. So how do you keep a presence in those buildings, working with the administration when you might not always get a chance to actually sit down with them and kind of show what's the amazing things that are happening in their district?
I'll start, if that's okay.
Sure.
I would say, first of all, just building rapport and relationship with them, getting to know them, trying to accommodate whatever their schedule is, which is crazy busy. And I prepare little 5-minute spurts of things I want to say. And I will, when I'm in a building, I just pop in an office and just say, hey, I wanted to run something by you. Do you have a second? Mm-hmm. And I started doing that at the beginning of the year, not necessarily knowing their schedule because, for example, our high school, we have one main principal, but we have a 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade principal as well. So there's tons of administrators that I still don't always know. And so trying to figure out, first of all, who's going to be my person that I talk to. And then once I start that relationship and build that rapport with them, then I can kind of just pop in rather than scheduling a formal meeting because their schedules are unpredictable often. Yeah. And it's, I don't want to be seen as a nuisance to them or one more thing that they have to take on. I also would say that anytime I need a principal to communicate something or anytime I would like to communicate with the staff, I write up in advance what I need them to communicate and ask them if they could just copy paste that, send that out to their staff. It saves them time and kind of lightens their load, I would say. And then I would also say because our buildings have coaches in them, having the relationship with the coach, often the coach is like the right hand of the principal. So meeting with the coach, often they have the ear of the principal and can communicate when I'm not in the building. Oh, I met with Rachel, this past Monday. And then that's how I've kind of gotten now to my next little part of the answer is invited to building leadership team meetings or principals meetings with the curriculum directors and just kind of have a voice at the table where they might ask my opinion about things. And so only being there for a year and a half, I've had to really work hard at relationship building with principals. So
I think that's interesting, Rachel. It's kind of like insert coach, insert whoever, right? Like peer influencer for the admin at the building. We talk a lot about that and think about that with teachers, like some of our teachers who maybe, maybe they don't want to work with the coach. They're, what for whatever reason. And a lot of times working with their peer influencers is really helpful. So when you said, the coach often has their ear, it just kind of made me think that's a good spin to put on, find the building principal's peer influencer. If you're struggling to connect for whatever reason, schedules, they don't understand what you do as a coach, whatever it may be. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Cami, what do you use to help kind of communicate with the administration?
So we're fortunate in that as coaches, we get invited to the school leader meeting. So about every month we have a school leader meeting where all the leaders travel in together and we're usually face to face in person. And there's, a kind of a morning where there's lots of admin PD and admin, leadership support, growing them as leaders. And then the afternoon has this list of all the agenda items of all the things, right? But so we get to go to those. And so we're sitting in the room. And so that's a great time to, sit beside a different leader every time and get to know people. And so because I've been in the district for 6 years, I do know all the leaders really well by now. But again, those small school leaders really especially find value in what we do. And so I often joke that as a coach, I'm on speed text. And so, if they have a question or a thing, they'll text me. And if it's one of those small schools principals, I do just about everything to get back to them as soon as I can. Or, other people, you'll see that email and come in and say, okay, well, I'll do that tomorrow morning, or I'll get to that tonight. But if it's one of those small school, I'm like, I try to support them because I know like they've been teaching all day and they're trying to fit these things in between, their teaching time. So, having developed that relationship where they'll shoot us off a text and say, hey, I know you're coming on Friday. Can you do this too? Or can we squeeze this in? And so that, that real quick communication would be one thing. And then like Rachel said, when we're in the schools, if we're there to see teachers, always making sure to, get into the coach or the principal or the admin and say, hey, I'm here today and I've met with some of your teachers. And of course there's confidentiality and you don't necessarily go into all the things that you've been working on. But if, let's say I've been, working on, like this year, our whole district is doing exhibitions of learning at their schools. And so that's been a brand new thing. And the schools are like, wow, what is this thing? And how do we do it? And so as coaches, we've really been supporting that. And so the teacher or the admin at the end of the day love it when I say, okay, so I was working with this teacher on their project and this teacher, and they just, thank you for doing that, because that's been quite a new thing. And so everyone's a little uncertain of how to go forward. So when they know that we've been in the building and we've been moving some of those projects along with teachers, they love to know that. And so, we want to like Rachel said, lighten their load and kind of support wherever we can.
Yeah. And Cami, if you wouldn't mind, really quick, what's an exhibition of learning in case anyone's not sure?
So think like, sometimes when teachers don't know, we say like, think like science fair, where everyone's kind of got their thing, but it'll be it could look like lots of different things. So basically throughout the year, the goal is at the end, we're going to celebrate some learning. So it might be like some schools are publishing a book and some schools are doing like a learning fair where here's the best thing I learned this year and here's how I learned it. So it's the final product, but we're really focusing on the process, the learning along the way, that reflection. And so we're also trying to grow our schools and our teachers in that kind of that deeper learning process where it's iterating and reflecting on something that they're doing. And so that's, as a school, they are all responsible to have an afternoon or an evening where they all come together and they have a learning showcase. And so that's what we're calling these exhibitions of learning. And so that's something that a few schools have done, but it certainly hasn't been kind of a district-wide mandate. And so that's really pushing the thinking and pushing the learning in a good way. And so that's been a real avenue for us as coaches to do lots of support.
Yeah, it sounds like a great way to duplicate yourself. Well, kind of, just kind of on the same line of thought with this admin, I recently heard someone say they do not have a coach, this particular group of schools. And someone said, we don't think our teachers really understand what an instructional coach is, so we don't think they'd be used. So aside from just going down a soapbox there, I would argue that it's more important for the building principals to understand what the coach is, like starting off, because they can really just be such an advocate. I mean, anyone who's a loyal listener knows I say this all the time, but just this week I was reading additional coaching research around like systemic change in a district and how do coaches support systemic like instructional transformation in a district. And it goes right back to admin support. And it starts from the top, and it's so critical at the building level for those building principals to understand. So I think some of the things and advice that you both gave are really great starters to helping form those relationships and help those building principals or the building leaders, whatever they're called, help them understand what your capability and places that you can plug in and support teachers, because once they understand, they'll help their teachers understand the value of the coach and how they can utilize them.
Yeah. And I think too, like helping the principal with something they're working on. Like a small example is one of the principals at an elementary was trying to learn Canva for her weekly staff bulletin. And I did what Cami talked about in creating a template for Black History Month, and just created that and froze all of the text boxes so she couldn't mess it up because she's super nervous.
Yep.
And she has now pushed that out, and now all of a sudden I am super valuable to her teachers. And she's like, when can we plug you in? And just one little tiny thing for me to support her went a long way. So I agree.
Canva's a great gateway for coaches. Like, in our district, like every teacher, every admin wants to know more and learn more about Canva. So a lot of the work that we've been doing this year is like, hey, can you teach our teachers Canva? And so lots of the PD that we've done, you know, both in person and video PD and asynchronous, it's been around Canva. And it's like, that's been a door opener in a lot of ways, actually. So,
it's so nice when you find that, like, I feel like it's rare to find the like golden ticket of a tool that does so much. So when teachers actually invest their time, them and their students, they just get to learn so much. But we're big fans of Canva here too. But okay, sorry, it's landing on me, Justin. You've got to get it back to you.
You did all right the other time. So.
But we're gonna end this episode with your top 3 tips for finding a balance in a large district, be it geographically, building number, student, staff, population. So, Cammie, we'll start with you on this one to kind of round us out here.
Okay. So, number 1, and in no particular order, of course, would be to use Google Meet or Zoom or whatever your product is to do lots of things, to move coaching cycles along, to have those meetings with teachers or admin to provide that support. For my case, it saves a lot of driving time. But, you know, even for Rachel, it's just that time. And so you can get teachers on and off real quick. And so our teachers like to just do that because it saves everybody time. So number 1 would be to use Google Meet to take advantage. In person is important, but the support with Google Meet or whatever is really important too. So a second one, and we didn't talk about this as much, but would be to clone yourself with the power of video. And so I do lots of when people have a question, or I say, oh, I've had that question twice this week, I'll make a really quick Screencastify recording. So I have that and then send that out. But then I'll do a lot that are just a little bit, better quality videos and record PD or videos. We do a lot of after school PD, mini PDs, and then I'll record those. So there's a video people can watch later. So that use the power of video. For that asynchronous, people at their own time. That's been important. And then the last one I would say would be arrive early and stay late. And for me, I don't know what it's like for you, Rachel, but it's like, oh, I've been meaning to email you. And right. So that's when teachers have time. It's not during the day, but if you're there before or after, then their teacher load is kind of off and they're like, oh, I've been wanting to email you about this. And so that's when I find that my calendar grows is before school and after school, when teachers are like, oh, I've been wanting to talk to you. And so then, we either probably just make a schedule to talk in the future, but it happens because I'm there. I try to be there in the building before the day starts. And if possible, to still be there at the end of the day. And that's when a lot of the best coaching happens. So those would be my 3.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would say my first tip is to find a way to let people in the district get to know you before you even step foot in their building somehow on a personal level, so that when you do get in the building, they already feel a connection in some way to you. And one way I do that in my newsletter is just get to know your tech coach, just personal things. And I have teachers respond in Flip. And they connect with each other that way, but then that's a point of conversation when I come in the building, like, oh, I didn't know you had a dog, or, whatever. My second tip would be actually to set boundaries for how many people you can work with, because I think that when you're working with people in coaching cycles, teachers, if you spread yourself too thin, then I think you can lose effectiveness in coaching them. So kind of trying to set those boundaries and just, having a limit to how many can sign up to do a coaching cycle specifically would be my second one. And then my third is to work smarter, not harder. And similar to what Cammie said, where you can repeat things, do so. Doing the same mini PD for several of the buildings, or videoing one and sending it out to the rest. And then like Cammie said, the small videos, when you get something asked more than once, go ahead and just make a video and send that out. People find that to be valuable. So those are mine.
Awesome tips.
Yeah, those are really good tips. I love your little quote for that tip, Cami. Clone yourself with the power of video. It's like that should be a good presentation title or something. Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on. This has been definitely a really good episode in terms of I still can't get over the fact that, I mean, like, I've been through West Virginia on multiple times, and it's a pretty large state for in terms of how you're covering that in multiple
West Virginia is bigger.
Oh,
West
it's bigger.
Virginia
Okay.
is almost twice the size of us. So, but
Okay,
we're
so
bigger
not
than all those little
like Vermont and Rhode Island.
all
The
those
New
like
England
The
states.
New
bigger than
England
9
states.
of the New England. Yeah.
Oh, that's mind blowing. But thank you both for coming on. Hopefully this has helped a lot of folks in very similar situations, whether it's geographical or student population large.
Great
So-
ideas. Thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
So we have another episode coming up next in 2 weeks that's going to be really good. It's going to be an episode about coaches working with teachers who struggle with classroom management. So we know that classroom management can sometimes be difficult, so we'll talk about ideas that coaches can assist teachers with to get a little bit more ed tech in there and hopefully get students engaged and interested in those lessons.
Yeah, so be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love a rating and review if you have a couple of seconds, just to help other educators and coaches find our podcast. It would mean a lot to us. And you can follow us on all the social media at RRCoachCast.
And feel free to reach out to us and let us know if there's any topics that you want us to discuss here on Restart Recharge.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.